The Draconian Empire, once poised to dominate the galaxy, faced a catastrophic defeat in the Lyran constellation. In their genocidal campaign to exterminate the Lyran humanoids, they nearly succeeded in eradicating the entire race. However, the intervention of the ancient feline beings, a highly advanced and powerful race, thwarted their efforts. These felines, deeply connected to the balance of the galaxy, mounted a fierce counterattack and forced the Draconians into a humiliating retreat. During their invasion of Lyra, the Draconians made a crucial discovery. The humanoid species provided a valuable food source. The adrenaline produced in human blood during moments of intense fear gave the Draconians a euphoric high, making humans a prime target for their predatory instincts. The Draconians' deep-seated hatred for all humanoid species, which stemmed from their defeat in Lyra, became a driving force for their future conquests. Since all humanoid species across the galaxy traced their lineage back to the Lyrans, the Draconians now sought to eradicate them as part of their vengeance for the shameful defeat they suffered at the hands of the felines. After their defeat in Lyra, the Draconian Empire retreated to the Draco system to regroup and strategize. Realizing that the felines were too powerful to confront directly, they shifted their focus to the weaker humanoid civilizations descended from the Lyrans. Their hatred for humans, in particular, was intensified by their earlier defeat, and they now viewed humanity as a species to be hunted and eradicated. With the Orion constellation being home to many humanoid species, including survivors of the Lyran onslaught, the Draconians saw it as their next target. However, they underestimated the humans in Orion, who had learned from their mistakes in Lyra. With the help of the felines, the surviving humans in Orion had begun to militarize, preparing as much as possible with the few resources and people they had left. The invasion of Orion was far from easy for the Draconians. Though they expected a swift conquest, they met significant resistance, particularly from the humans who had learned from the devastating events in Lyra. With the aid of the felines, these humans had bolstered their defenses and were no longer the defenseless targets they once were. They had militarized and fortified their worlds, determined to avoid the same fate that had befallen their Lyran ancestors. The Orion Wars became a brutal and drawn-out conflict as human factions, alongside other humanoid species, mounted a formidable resistance. The humans in particular employed guerrilla tactics, strategic defenses, and coordinated attacks against the Draconian forces, which forced the Draconians into a prolonged campaign of attrition. Despite the overwhelming power of the Draconian forces, the humans' resilience made the conquest of Orion one of the hardest-fought battles the Empire had faced. After years of bloody warfare, the Draconians eventually subdued the Orion resistance. Their tactics shifted from brute military force to more insidious methods, including political manipulation and the exploitation of divisions within the human and humanoid factions. Despite the formidable resistance, the Draconians eventually broke the unity of the humanoid species in Orion, leading to their gradual subjugation. With the fall of Orion, the Draco-Orion Empire was formed. The empire now spanned 18 stars across the Draco and Orion constellations, and their military force had grown to 33.7 billion troops. Although many humans had militarized and fought bravely, their defeat in Orion only fueled the Draconians' desire to hunt down the remaining humanoid civilizations scattered across the galaxy. With Orion now firmly under their control, the Draconians turned their gaze toward the Taurus constellation, a region rich with resources and strategically important for their expansion. The Taurus constellation, however, was not just another conquest. It housed the Pleiadian star cluster, a system populated by spiritually advanced humanoids directly descended from the Lyrans. Initially, the Draconians planned to employ their infiltration tactics, which had proven successful in the past. They intended to destabilize the Pleiadians from within, using manipulation to fracture their leadership and weaken their defenses. However, the Pleiadians were not as politically fragmented as the civilizations in Orion. Having long suspected a Draconian invasion, they had maintained a united front, and their defenses were well prepared, though largely spiritual rather than militaristic. As part of their infiltration strategy, the Draconians sent an envoy to meet with the Pleiadians, under the guise of diplomacy. Beneath the surface of their diplomatic overtures, however, lay a far more insidious intention: to subjugate the Pleiadians from within. This deceptive approach had worked for the Draconians in the past, as they often used manipulation and political maneuvering to destabilize their targets before launching full-scale invasions. The Pleiadians, a spiritually advanced civilization that valued peace and unity, initially welcomed the opportunity for mutual growth and cooperation, unaware of the true Draconian agenda. The Pleiadians, already wary of the Draconian reputation, were suspicious but agreed to a formal meeting in an attempt to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Despite their reservations, they hoped that diplomacy could bridge the gap between their vastly different cultures. The initial encounter, however, was doomed from the start. When the Draconian envoy extended his hand for a handshake, customary in Draconian culture as a sign of respect and strength, the Pleiadians, unfamiliar with the gesture, misinterpreted it as an act of aggression. Their culture, steeped in nonverbal spiritual communication, did not prioritize physical contact in diplomatic exchanges, seeing such actions as invasive. This stark cultural clash heightened the already tense atmosphere, causing the Pleiadians to react defensively. They activated protective energy fields, fearing an attack was imminent. This perceived insult infuriated the Draconians, whose cultural pride was deeply wounded. For the Draconians, the handshake was not merely a formality, but a sacred gesture of power and respect. The Pleiadians' rejection of this gesture was seen as a grievous slight. The failed diplomatic encounter was now interpreted as an unforgivable act of disrespect. In the eyes of the Draconians, the Pleiadians had not only rejected their overtures, but had insulted their honor, an offense that demanded immediate and devastating retribution. What had begun as an attempt at subtle manipulation quickly escalated into a full-scale assault. Angered by what they perceived as a deliberate insult, the Draconians launched an immediate and brutal attack on the Pleiadian star cluster. The invasion of the Pleiades mirrored the earlier genocide in Lyra. The Draconians unleashed their full military might, attacking Pleiadian worlds with the intent of wiping out another branch of the Lyran-descended humanoids. The Pleiadians, though spiritually powerful and prepared in many ways, were not as militarized as the Draconians. Despite their advanced spiritual technology and defensive energy fields, they were outmatched by the sheer force of the Draconian fleets. As the Draconians ravaged the Pleiadian worlds, millions of lives were lost, and entire planets were laid to waste. However, the Pleiadians, like the Lyrans before them, had a contingency plan. Recognizing that they could not win the war on their own, they initiated a mass exodus, fleeing their homes and seeking refuge in their ancestral home of Lyra, where they hoped to regroup and find allies willing to fight against the Draconian Empire. Even before the Andromedans sent their military forces to intervene in the Great Galactic War, their renowned angelic and military academies had long been a beacon of higher learning for various galactic civilizations. These academies, located within the Andromeda galaxy, were known for their comprehensive training programs in spiritual growth, military strategy, and energy-based technologies. They prepared beings not just for physical warfare, but also for the delicate balance between the spiritual and material planes. The Andromedan angelic schools, situated within the seventh-dimensional celestial realm, served as a place for advanced souls to train as protectors, spiritual healers, and cosmic guides. It taught them to act as agents of Source with the responsibility of maintaining balance in the lower dimensions and helping civilizations to remember their divine origins. This training school also connected deeply with the Atmic or angelic plane, a realm where beings learned how to become angels, acquiring the wisdom and power necessary to guide souls and bring them back to their true essence. Angels trained here were tasked with protecting not only the physical realm, but also the spiritual realms, cleansing negative energies and guiding lost souls toward higher vibrational states. They were adept at healing, not only on the physical plane, but also within the astral and ethereal dimensions. Part of their training involved descending into darker realms to cleanse and purify energies without harming any beings, always striving to restore balance through non-destructive means. The Andromedan military schools, meanwhile, were equally prestigious. They specialized in training galactic warriors in advanced tactical warfare, energy manipulation, and the creation of advanced technologies. Students from various species, including the Lyrans, Pleiadians, and even reformed Draconians, sought training in these schools to enhance their defensive and offensive capabilities. The military schools were known for their emphasis on strategic warfare that incorporated spiritual and metaphysical principles. Warriors trained not just for combat, but also to defend the galaxy's energetic grids and maintain cosmic harmony. Although the Andromedans refrained from sending troops to directly participate in the early stages of the war, their involvement was substantial. They trained and advised the Galactic Alliance, providing them with spiritual technologies, strategic insights, and advanced weaponry. The Pleiadians, Lyrans, and Arcturians benefited greatly from the Andromedans' knowledge, integrating these teachings into their military efforts against the Draco-Orion Empire. Following the Pleiadians' retreat to the Lyran constellation, the war escalated, drawing more star systems into the conflict. The Draconian Empire, emboldened by their victories in Orion and Taurus, saw an opportunity to finally crush the Lyran-descended humanoids once and for all. The renewed Draconian offensive targeted not only Lyra, but also nearby star systems that harbored humanoid populations, seeking to expand their empire and eliminate their ancient enemies. The Pleiadians, now allied with the remnants of the Lyran humanoids and the feline beings, began organizing a defense. Recognizing that they could not face the Draconian military machine alone, the Pleiadians sent out urgent calls for help to their ancient allies across the galaxy. This marked the beginning of the formation of a united coalition aimed at countering the Draco-Orion Empire's aggressive expansion. In response to the growing threat posed by the Draconian Empire, key civilizations across the galaxy began to rally together to form what would become the Galactic Alliance. Among the most crucial members of this alliance were the Pleiadians, the Lyrans, and the Arcturians. The Pleiadians brought their spiritual knowledge, advanced healing techniques, and energy-based technologies which were essential in keeping the morale of the alliance intact. The Lyran descendants, now militarized and battle-hardened, formed the backbone of the alliance's military force, ready to face the Draconians with newfound strength. The Arcturians, renowned for their strategic and technological expertise, became instrumental in coordinating the defense, using their knowledge of advanced warfare and energy manipulation to turn the tide of battle. With the alliance growing, they began to prepare for a full-scale war against the Draconian forces, knowing that their survival and the survival of their entire species depended on standing united against their common enemy. During the Orion Wars, the Arcturians had refused to directly intervene, instead offering advice to the Lyrans to be wary of the Draconians. This inaction contributed to the near annihilation of the Lyran humanoids, including a significant part of the human race. The weight of this mistake led the Arcturians to realize they could not remain passive again. Now, as the war escalated, the Arcturians took a more active role. They committed themselves fully to the Galactic Alliance, providing critical military and strategic support. Their expertise in energy manipulation and spiritual technologies became the backbone of the Alliance's defense. The Arcturians devised a strategy of containment, aiming to slow the Draconian expansion, while the rest of the Alliance built up their forces for a longer, more strategic war. The Arcturians, having learned from their past inaction, realized that only through direct and united efforts could they hope to stop the Draconian threat. As the war spread, the galaxy polarized. Different species began to align themselves with either the Draco-Orion Empire or the Lyran-Pleiadian Alliance, based on cultural, political, and survival instincts. The Draconian Empire continued to gather support from species that shared their imperialistic views or feared being overrun by their military might. Draco-Orion Empire's growing allies. Scorpius, a species known for their lethal tactics and ruthless nature. They saw the Draconian Empire as an opportunity to expand their territory and power, aligning with them early in the war. Hydra, sea serpent. The Hydra species, famous for their regenerative abilities, sought to control critical galactic waterways. They allied with the Draco-Orion Empire, hoping to gain strategic control over key trade routes. Crab. The Cancer species, naturally defensive and family-oriented, offered their loyalty to the Draconians in exchange for military protection and territorial gains. Leo, lion. The Leo species, fierce and proud warriors, joined the Draco-Orion Empire to expand their influence through conquest, attracted to the Empire's promise of dominance. The Lyran-Pleiadian alliance's expanding ranks. Hercules, hero. A species known for their strength and honor in battle, the Herculeans aligned with the Lyran-Pleiadian alliance to fight for the preservation of their way of life and freedom. Triangulum, triangle. Known for their technological advancements, the Triangulum species offered valuable resources and weaponry to the alliance in hopes of maintaining peace and order. Pisces, fishes. Spiritual and peaceful, the Pisces species aligned with the alliance, offering healing technologies and energy-based defenses to counter the Draconian aggression. As these species joined their respective sides, the first major battles of the war unfolded. The Draco-Orion Empire, now bolstered by their new allies, launched a series of devastating attacks on key Lyran-Pleiadian strongholds. Entire star systems were drawn into the conflict as both sides vied for control over strategic territories. Despite the overwhelming power of the Draconian forces, the Galactic Alliance, under the guidance of the Arcturians, held their ground through strategic defense and energy-based technologies. While the early battles were hard-fought, the Alliance's coordination and reliance on their spiritual technologies allowed them to delay the Draconian advance, buying time for more civilizations to join their ranks. As the war reached its peak, the Draco-Orion Empire faced increasing resistance from the growing Galactic Alliance. Although the Draconians had experienced major victories in Orion and Taurus, the resistance from the Lyran-Pleiadian Alliance, bolstered by the strategic leadership of the Arcturians, began to push back harder than anticipated. Realizing they needed to adapt, the Draconians sought new allies to shift the tide of war. In response to the growing coalition against them, the Draconians rallied support from other war-hardened species. Among them were the Mantis species, originating from a parallel universe, known for their tactical genius and ruthless efficiency in battle. Their insectoid ships, equipped with cutting-edge biotechnology, added a new layer of terror to the Draconian fleet. Alongside them, lesser-known species, drawn by promises of power or driven by fear, bolstered the Draconian ranks. With the Mantis species now fully integrated into the Draco-Orion Empire, the scale of the Draconian military had expanded dramatically. At the height of the war, the Draco-Orion Empire controlled 236 stars across 26 constellations. Their combined military force now numbered a staggering 438 billion beings, including species such as the Scorpius, Hydra, Cancer, and many more. The Mantis, with their unparalleled skills in strategic planning and manipulation, led some of the Empire's most critical offensives. Under their command, the Draconian fleets began to employ psychological warfare, alongside traditional brute force, in an effort to fracture the Galactic Alliance from within. The arrival of the Mantis marked a shift in the war. Instead of relying solely on overwhelming firepower, the Draco-Orion Empire, with the help of the Mantis tacticians, began to employ more complex strategies. These included covert operations and disinformation campaigns designed to weaken the unity of the Galactic Alliance. At this point in the war, battles raged across numerous star systems, with the Draconian fleet and their allies employing cutting-edge biotechnology to dominate key sectors. The Mantis insectoid ships, renowned for their ability to adapt to battlefield conditions, wreaked havoc across the galaxy, destroying both military and civilian targets with ruthless efficiency. The growing threat posed by the Mantis-led campaigns forced the Galactic Alliance to reassess its strategies. The Arcturians, recognizing the devastating efficiency of the Mantis forces, devised a counter-strategy. They focused on disrupting Mantis communication networks and targeting their command ships. At the same time, the Pleiadians and Lyran-descended humanoids rallied their forces, launching counterattacks against strategic Draconian outposts. While the Alliance's defensive strategies succeeded in holding back the Draconian advance, the scale of the war continued to grow, with casualties mounting on both sides. As the Draco-Orion Empire expanded and the Mantis species joined their ranks, the Andromedans continued their role as advisors, working behind the scenes to preserve galactic stability. Their diplomatic envoys regularly communicated with key Galactic Alliance leaders, advocating for peaceful resolutions wherever possible. The Andromedans, who had long transcended their own conflicts, sought to minimize the war's impact on the spiritual fabric of the galaxy. While they refused to send military forces, they did extend their spiritual technologies to the Galactic Alliance. These technologies, designed to heal and align cosmic energies, helped mitigate some of the damage caused by the war. Andromedan energy shields were deployed to protect key Alliance worlds, and their healing frequencies were used to restore vital systems that had been destabilized by Draconian attacks. However, the Andromedans maintained their distance from the military aspects of the war, hoping that the conflict could still be resolved without their full intervention. During the war, a neutral Draconian scientist, working in the shadows of the Zeta Reticuli star system, engineered the Zeta Greys using DNA from the original Orion Grey species. These Zeta Greys were created with the purpose of being expendable soldiers, designed to act as frontline cannon fodder for the Draco-Orion Empire, ensuring that actual Draconian forces would face fewer casualties. The Greys, although intelligent, were made to be subservient and easy to control. They were given little to no autonomy, functioning as biological drones that could be mass-produced and sacrificed in battle. Once the Zeta Greys were perfected, the Draco-Orion Empire quickly ordered vast numbers of them to serve as frontline soldiers and to support the Empire's military operations. By placing the Greys on the front lines, the Draconians ensured that their own forces would be kept relatively safe during dangerous engagements. The Greys also formed the backbone of the Empire's military infrastructure, serving in support roles that freed up the Draconians and their more valuable allies for key strategic missions. The expendability of the Greys meant that they were often used in high-risk operations, where their loss would not significantly impact the Empire's overall strength. Seeing how the Draco-Orion Empire deployed the Greys as cannon fodder, the Galactic Alliance also acquired their own contingents of Zeta Greys. However, the Alliance was more cautious in how they used the Greys, employing them in a supporting role rather than throwing them into the heat of battle as the Draconians did. The Arcturians and Pleiadians adapted the Greys for logistical purposes and covert operations, using them in less expendable ways. Still, the presence of the Greys on both sides indicated how the war was now shifting towards technological and synthetic warfare, where organic beings like the Greys were treated as tools rather than independent entities. As the war intensified, the Zeta Greys became a crucial component of the Draco-Orion Empire's war machine. They were deployed on the front lines in nearly every major battle, serving as disposable assets that allowed the Empire to conserve its more valuable troops. The Draconians viewed them as expendable, and their role was to absorb enemy fire and overwhelm the defenses of the Galactic Alliance through sheer numbers. While the Alliance also used the Greys, they did so more selectively, trying to avoid unnecessary casualties where possible. The Zeta Greys, however, remained a symbol of how ruthless and impersonal the war had become. With both sides using the Zeta Greys extensively, the war escalated to unprecedented levels of destruction. Battles stretched across 236 stars in 26 constellations, and the sheer scale of the conflict resulted in the devastation of 25,000 to 50,000 planets. The Draco-Orion Empire, under the command of the Mantis tacticians and bolstered by the expendable Grey forces, pressed its advantage in the war, determined to crush the Galactic Alliance. Despite their military strength, the Galactic Alliance continued to resist. With both sides now relying on synthetic beings like the Zeta Greys, the war reached new heights of devastation, and entire star systems became battlegrounds for control. As the war between the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance raged on, a new and unexpected force entered the conflict: the Cynocephaly, a species of fierce, wolf-like beings from the Sirius C star system. For many years, the Cynocephaly were little more than rumors, their existence whispered about but never confirmed. These beings were said to be ruthless warriors, feared for their brutal efficiency in battle and their near unquenchable thirst for conquest. However, as the war continued to spread across the galaxy, these rumors were quickly proven true. The Cynocephaly suddenly launched devastating attacks on both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance, catching both sides off guard. Their unexpected and ferocious assaults resulted in immense casualties, with the Cynocephaly defeating several Draconian legions, something that had only ever happened once before, during the Lyran Wars, when the felines managed to repel the Draconian forces. The Cynocephaly, more brutal and tactically skilled than even the Draconians, quickly became a force to be reckoned with. Their warrior society valued battle and conquest above all, and they showed no preference for either side in the war, instead attacking both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance without warning or mercy. What made the Cynocephaly particularly dangerous was their unpredictability and overwhelming ferocity in combat. They possessed the tactical precision of the Mantis species, but combined it with the brute force that rivaled the Draconians themselves. The Cynocephaly targeted key military positions, inflicting heavy casualties and destabilizing both sides. Entire fleets were destroyed in their surprise attacks, and their ability to defeat multiple Draconian legions struck fear into the Draco-Orion Empire. The Galactic Alliance, too, suffered massive losses at the hands of the Cynocephaly, further complicating their already precarious position in the war. The sudden rise of the Cynocephaly created chaos across the galaxy. Both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance found themselves in a dire situation. Facing a new enemy that seemed to be more powerful than either side could handle individually, both factions realized that continuing the war while being attacked by the Cynocephaly would lead to their mutual destruction. In an unprecedented move, a short truce was declared between the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance. This temporary ceasefire allowed both sides to focus their efforts on defending against the relentless attacks of the Cynocephaly. The truce was tenuous, built on mutual necessity rather than trust or cooperation. Both sides knew that once the Cynocephaly threat was contained, the war would inevitably resume. The Cynocephaly's rampage across the galaxy left entire star systems devastated. Despite the combined efforts of both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance, the Cynocephaly proved to be an almost unstoppable force, embodying pure chaos and destruction. Their attacks decimated fleets, obliterated planetary defenses, and left entire civilizations in ruins. Fear spread like wildfire across the galaxy as the Cynocephaly launched sudden and ferocious assaults, attacking both the Galactic Alliance and Draco-Orion forces indiscriminately. This lack of allegiance earned them a reputation as mercenaries of destruction, motivated purely by conquest and the thrill of battle. Both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance saw the potential of swaying the Cynocephaly to their side, hoping that their sheer ferocity could tip the balance of the war. The Galactic Alliance, valuing unity and protection, made diplomatic overtures, offering respect for the Cynocephaly's autonomy and the promise of a more honorable cause. Meanwhile, the Draco-Orion Empire appealed to the Cynocephaly's love of chaos, offering them the spoils of war and unrestricted access to galactic conquest. Despite these efforts, the Cynocephaly remained largely unaligned, playing both sides as mercenaries, driven by a desire for endless war rather than loyalty. Their role as unpredictable wildcards added a new layer of tension to the conflict, making them a dangerous force that neither side could fully control. The Cynocephaly's presence had a profound psychological impact on the war. For the first time, the Draconians, who had long considered themselves invincible, were forced to acknowledge a more savage, unpredictable enemy. This weakened their morale and challenged their strategic dominance. The Galactic Alliance, too, realized that they were not only fighting to survive against the Draconian Empire, but also against a third force whose only goal seemed to be destruction for its own sake. This relentless violence introduced a new dimension of fear into the war. Even the most well-fortified worlds were no longer safe, as the Cynocephaly employed guerrilla-style warfare, using hit-and-run tactics that decimated defenses before retreating into the shadows. Their brutality left psychological scars, fracturing morale and instilling terror into both the Galactic Alliance and Draco-Orion forces. They ultimately sided with the Draconians, drawn by the promise of unrestrained warfare. This decision marked a significant shift in the balance of power, as the Cynocephaly's brutal tactics and unmatched ferocity became a key asset for the Draco-Orion Empire. Their role as mercenary warriors brought new intensity to the war, as they spearheaded the Draconian offensive, leading attacks against the Galactic Alliance with devastating effectiveness.